You know what's crazy? Megami's entire development in the entire series of Jujutsu Kaisen literally was to be used as a skin suit for Sukuna to just come in and pilot and make Megami's technique way more cooler than Megami could ever. And that makes me sad. That should make you sad. But you know what else makes me sad and also hurts? The fact that you're not subscribed to this channel. I'm trying to hit 20k subscribers and I need your help to do that before the end of next month for my 1-year anniversary on YouTube, which is kind of crazy. I've been here for a year, almost a year anyway, but that's crazy. Anyway, let's just get straight into the juicy, meaty goodness that JJK has delivered for us. This chapter opens up with Gojo having just slashed by the Mahoraga, and we actually learn that the Mahoraga has only adapted to Infinity and Blue, which I gotta be honest with you, maybe I'm brain dead, but I legitimately thought he'd adapted to the entirety of Gojo's technique. Like, I think over this weekend I will try and get a video out on deep diving this, because good lord, it's confusing. I think I said this a couple of videos ago, but I actually really do want to do this Mahoraga video because it really is confusing. It would help me and it would probably help you guys as well, because some of you guys are also confused. I know for a fact you guys are, but I'm really confused. It's a confusing subject. But Shoko then goes on to point out how his wounds are actually healing very slow, and this time around his output is definitely dropping, and that's also likely the same for Sukuna. And we are really genuinely starting to see like just how far that these two can fight now. Like, it feels like we are genuinely into the final rounds. Like, we're watching like an old school boxing heavyweight fight. It's like 15 rounds, and right now we're at round like 13, 14. We are seeing the slugfest at its peak right now. These guys are in the trenches. But we get this crazy narration here that says even with the strongest in history, the king of cases as his opponents, all thought the idea in some respects impossible. But in this moment, the possibility of Gojo Satoru losing flooded their minds. And that same thought even struck Gojo himself, which is fucking crazy, bro. Like, about a week ago, I actually made a prediction that Gojo is going to die in chapter 234. And I even made a little song about it, like 234, Gojo is no more. You know, it's funny, but it's kind of sad. But this chapter is genuinely, legitimately filled with death flags, like Gojo's RCT dropping, Infinity being somewhat useless now, the Toji outfit, the narrator saying this, and even Gojo thinking it is just crazy. And then there's also the parallel between Gojo facing Sukuna and feeling uneasy while also thinking of Toji. It's genuinely really, really wild. But the narrator then continues on to say just how the signs of defeat start to show. A feeling of satisfaction comes rushing forward. The loneliness that comes with absolute strength, the one satisfying him now is, and it says ... but I'm assuming that it is talking about Sukuna because that's obviously the dude that he's fighting right now, but it does cut to him punching the Mahoraga in the face, so I guess it could be open to interpretation or open to misinterpretation, I suppose. But we do see Gojo smacking the ever-loving piss out of the Mahoraga, even causing this dude to choke spit out of his mouth from an attack that genuinely looked like the Kamehameha. Like, there is so many little references and nods to like other series in this fight. Like, genuinely, I can't wait. When this fight gets animated, you know Mappa are gonna go crazy for this, like genuinely crazy. But while Gojo has the Mahoraga on the ropes, he starts the incantation for a fully charged up reversal red, which Shoko says he's trying to restore his output, because right now obviously Gojo's output for reverse case technique is falling. I don't know if it means his output has fallen for the other techniques like laps and maybe purple or anything else, but right now for reverse case technique it seems Gojo's output is falling very rapidly and very quick. Gojo fires this red and Sukuna simply says nuh-uh and uses escape rabbit to hinder the attack. But I do want to point out that they actually did come from Gojo's shadow, which I thought was crazy. Like, the battle plan that Sukuna has and the fight IQ that he shows within this chapter alone might be possibly up there with the highest in the series, like genuinely. But Gojo goes on to say it looks like the Black Flash worked like a charm. How much longer are you gonna rest for? And he fires his red and we see Sukuna reappear. I don't know if he reappears from a shadow or from behind somewhere, but in the previous panel it does look as if he's in the shadows. But we see the Mahoraga running away, which I thought was absolutely funny. Seeing the Mahoraga, seeing this massive 20-foot mutant running actively away from Gojo was actually kind of funny. But we see him running away to regroup with Sukuna, with Gojo thinking to himself, Mahoraga is on the offense and Sukuna is on protection duty to make sure Mahoraga doesn't get destroyed. Because remember, if Mahoraga dies here, that's it. It's gone. It's GG. Which, as I've said before, I'm also certain Gojo can destroy Mahoraga with red or purple, and that's why Sukuna stepped in to use Escape Rabbit to protect Mahoraga from the fully charged up red. Later on in the chapter, obviously, his output falls and it doesn't do that much damage. But I think if that attack, had they switched around, had this one been the lower output one, and then at the end of the chapter been the fully output one, he possibly could have killed the Mahoraga there and then. But we see Sukuna using a fire extinguisher to to create a smoke screen for the Mahoraga to get up top, which I thought was genuinely different, and I feel maybe feels kind of useless. This man Gojo can literally see cursed energy. Wouldn't he just be able to see through the smoke screen? I don't know. Maybe actually he could only see cursed energy when he actually sees the person, and it doesn't work like X-ray, like Superman. I don't really know. But the Mahoraga appears above Gojo, ready to attack, while Sukuna charges up a piercing blood-styled attack. Now, I really want to talk about this while because it's been driving me nutty a little bit. There's a connection here, and I can't quite see it. My crazy crackpot brain has been trying to figure this out, but hear me out, because this is genuinely the craziest shit that I might have said on this channel. But Kenjaku was once Noritoshi Kamo, and we know that they have blood manipulation. Choso is also Kenjaku's child, basically. He also has a marking on his nose, and Sukuna has this same marking on this nose. Shout out to my comments for pointing this out, because I didn't even put this connection together, and also has knowledge of blood manipulation. Now, he could have learned this from Kenjaku, or maybe just witnessed it simply from Yuji's fight with Choso, but that doesn't explain the marking that Sukuna has on his nose. So, and I mean, this is a big what if, but what if Kenjaku is actually Sukuna's papi? Now, that might be the craziest crackpot theory that I think I've ever said on this channel, but there is some sort of connection between Sukuna and Kenjaku, and we don't really know what it is. We also know there's a connection somewhere along the lines between Yuji and Sukuna, and these two things, these little connections haven't been popped up here in this chapter. Makes me wonder what the fuck is going on. There's something here that I cannot quite figure out, and it's bugging me. So, question to you guys in the comments to see if you can try and figure that little conundrum out for it. But Sukuna fires this attack, and it actually does damage to Gojo because he's currently touching the Mahoraga, who's disabled his infinity. Now, if you're a little bit confused, don't worry, Papa Weeb is going to explain all of this right now. Basically, the Mahoraga has adapted to infinity, but Sukuna and Megami Soul was used as the substitute for the process of adaptation. So the Mahoraga won't take any damage, so now the Mahoraga can attack Gojo and get past his infinity, but Sukuna still can't. But Sukuna can attack when the Mahoraga attacks Gojo, and land his attack when the Mahoraga is touching him, as we've just saw now. So think of the Mahoraga as like a walking domain amplification right now. As soon as the Mahoraga touches Gojo, his infinity goes away, and Sukuna can then attack, which is a really good and strange battle plan for Sukuna, but it is working, obviously. But we see Gojo thinking that this is actually just a good old-fashioned jump jutsu 2v1 fight, and he actually even compliments Sukuna here, saying he's as handy as I am, when mentioning how Sukuna used the Max Elephant attack as a piercing blood-styled one. But he goes on to say how the Mahoraga should take longer to adapt to his red over blue, which Gojo says he now prefers that to having the Mahoraga pluck his cards from his hand one by one, which I'm pretty sure now confirms the Mahoraga adapts based on experience and exposure to the attack, but it can vary from technique to techniques. We are getting slowly but surely more and more drips and drabs of information of how the adaptation works, because I know it's been a point of sort of contention and maybe even convolution since the Mahoraga was introduced, because a lot of things that conflict, but I really do want to make this video going over all the evidence of it, because for my little brain, that video will more than likely be for me personally, but my brain needs to figure out how this is. I want to figure this all out. That's where Sukuna butts in and actually tells Gojo, don't misunderstand, this fight is actually a 3-on-1 fight, and summons new totality, which is called Chimera Beast Agito. And yes, it does look strikingly similar to Yorozo, but this isn't the 10th Shikigami. I want to make that very, very specific. This is new. It's just a fusion of a few of the Shikigami with new. And I want to say this is new and Divine Dog, because that's the kind of aura that I'm getting here. But someone did say that Orochi looks like it's on the back here. But I also want to point out, when Sukuna first summoned new way back when, you can see that Orochi is kind of there. But Orochi died at the hands of Sukuna, and obviously when a Shikigami dies, it is then absorbed into another one, so that's possibly what happened there, but I'm not entirely sure how that is actually working. But you can see this is obviously a fusion with traits of other Shikigami as well, because its name is Chimera Beast, and we see traits of Madoka Dia's antlers in there, and the way it's built, it looks like a Divine Dog totality. So yeah, there's a couple of other beasts in here, but I'm not quite sure which ones, but new seems to be the main factor for it. But these two Shikigami then start attacking Gojo, and Gojo starts 1v3 freeing them. Like, the brother is on his Ultra Instinct grind set right now during this fight, and I can't lie. But as Gojo is backing up, we see the two beasts fronting Gojo, and Sukuna appears from behind Gojo from his shadow and uses Piercing Blood to again attack Gojo. But it seems as if it's like a sort of effort to just mess with Gojo in a way, because at this point in time, the Mahoraga isn't touching Gojo, so his infinity should be up. So this feels like it's an effort to distract or play mental mind games with Gojo rather than actually harm him. Remember, Sukuna isn't adapted to infinity, but he can still play mind games on Gojo with attacks and switch it up with domain amplification to actually harm Gojo with fisticuffs and hand-to-hand combat. In the same sort of way, Todo switched it up against Mahito and Hanami by using or not using his Boogie Boogie technique. But we see the Mahoraga try and punch Gojo, which he misses with a swing and a miss here, and Gojo backs up to fire another red at the Mahoraga. But because his output isn't right now, it isn't as high as it should be, the reverse gears technique red actually barely damages the Mahoraga, which is where Gojo is saying how it's effective, but barely, because his output is on the decline. Then going on to say how he only took one hit from a red head on at that. So the adaptation is actually gradual rather than binary 0 to 100. But he does say this with a question mark, again, leaving it open to sort of interpretation. So I think my theory about Mahoraga adapted and taken process to do it, but it varies technique to technique, I would assume. So maybe it's based on complexity. But again, I do really want to go into this. But Gojo goes on to say how he'll have to take out the Mahoraga in one hit using that, being ambiguous with the wording here, and then going on to say on top of the charge up time, Sukuna's guard is up. And the fact that they're trying to close the gap between us and continuing to attack rather than prioritizing the red adaptation is a solid proof of that, which means I have no choice. I've got to settle this with my unlimited hollow technique, which is crazy because we saw what a 200% hollow purple did to the distance between Shinjuku and Shibuya, and I do want to point that out. Interestingly enough, Gojo only says hollow technique here. He doesn't outright say purple in the same time, because throughout this chapter he's been referring to red and blue as that, red and blue. But he doesn't outright say purple here, which is kind of interesting. So it makes me wonder if it is a purple or if it's something entirely new we've never seen before. And this is going to be Gojo's final hurrah. We do see Gojo smiling as he says this, so you just know this man is having the time of his life right now. Like, being able to destroy half of the city in a fight against someone he can go all out in, and the brother's just having a great time. And you can still say that Sukuna is also having a good time. These two have a really good moment here. But I'm still holding my prediction that Gojo is going out next chapter. Unfortunately, 234 Gojo is no more. I think that final attack will happen next chapter, and then it will leave us on a cliffhanger of Gojo potentially being killed. But I am very sad that that is going to happen, but there is just simply too many death flags within this chapter alone and throughout the fight, and narratively it just doesn't make sense to me personally for him to survive. So I am, over the past couple of weeks, I've been slowly but surely making peace with it, but that is my final prediction. I mean, it probably won't happen, but who knows? If it does happen, hey, I fortune teller of death, I suppose. But that is everything from me. If you've not already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. As I said, we are coming up on my 1-year anniversary on YouTube, and that is insane. Insane. These past 6 months alone have been genuinely life-changing me, so I'm trying to hit 20,000 subscribers before that 1-year anniversary happens on the 27th of September. Nearly forgot the date there real quick, which would be insane. So I highly recommend you subscribe for that massive PP energy buff. But that is everything from me. So as always, I will catch you guys all in the next one. Much love, big kisses, peace.